Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States. Joined, as always, most of the time, whenever possible, Mark Ostrander and Grant Turner, two of the homies. First of all, good morning, guys. Good to see you both.
Good to be here.
Good morning, bud.
There's a lot of stuff going on. We usually run through the docket throughout the week. And as I add stuff, as I see things, it's a lot. But we need to start internationally. So there were several tournaments that happened, the Kolov, the DeGlane, the Urigan. There's another tournament coming up. And besides the best hair in the business, our guy Grant Turner actually understands a little bit about international wrestling. So the floor is yours, sir. Please explain to everybody what happened and then also what is coming up. And I believe it's pronounced Zagreb.
Yeah, so the international wrestling tournaments kind of kicked off for the first of the year here with the Henri DeGlane in France and then the Dan Kolov in Bulgaria in order to kind of get the stage set. And it's all started off with like senior level competition. So as we kind of get into that, the last kind of tournament that we got a chance to really, see a lot of these guys at was the Kolov. That was where basically like Dayton Fix made the finals, won it there. We had some other guys representing from, the United States, Devin Turner, at that weight class early, often on that kind of stuff. So
is that also where he wrestled Marsteller?
Yes.
Okay.
So as you kind of look at kind of the results and all that kind of thing, it's a great opportunity for a lot of these guys, basically to kick off the start of the year. As you kind of get to a place where you're not wrestling your countrymen anymore, you're going to go mix it up with some other people. So, U.S. took a kind of a big group over there, and I think a lot of them are going to basically go to that tournament in Bulgaria and then stay, and then next week be able to wrestle at the Zagreb ranking series, which is the first ranking series of the year for the UWW ranking series points, which then give you your seeds for the world championships.
Yeah.
So you basically get to a point there. But the U.S. basically had a really, really good showing. Fix wins gold. Luan from Michigan ended up winning at 70 kilos.
Harris won and Zahid won. And Zahid beat Marsteller in the finals. Fix beat Devin Turner, who's an American, in the finals. So tons of medals over there. And I think maybe the bigger picture, and then you can talk about Urigan, but this stuff leads into Zagreb, which is a ranking series. UWW has made a much better attempt. You've seen the evolution of a GT because you've been in it the whole way. But it used to just be blind draw and unweighted brackets. What we mean by that is if there was, in America, we split the buys up, and in international, they didn't. Like if there's 24 guys, it'd be 16 on one side and 8 on the other. Now it's 12 and 12. Then they originally seeded 2 guys or women, then 4, and now there's 8. And there's certainly complaints that the system isn't perfect, which it isn't, but it's because not everybody wrestles in all the ranking series. And, you can't control that, but they're doing at least a better job. I won't say they're doing the best they can, but certainly making significantly higher effort than would have been made in the past. And I think one of the things that I probably dwell on more than you guys is how it's never over, right? Like when, say, Spencer Lee or Sarah Hildebrandt or Kennedy Blades places at the Olympics or wins the Olympics in Hildebrandt's case, they're now in the finals of Final X for our country, but they also carry a lot of points over for next year as part of that seeding formula. So unless you retire, your past kind of always goes with you, good, bad, or ugly. Is that hopefully a fair sentence, a long one?
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that we have to kind of remember and realize is that if you're at a specific weight and then you go to another weight, none of those points carry with you to the new weight class. Right. So if you've been dominant at 79 all year long, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm having a tough time cutting the weight, I'm going to go up to 86. It's like you've never wrestled that weight class the entire year. or if you have 0 basic ranking series points for that.
Well, and to use a specific example of a guy that's at a different weight class, Zahid was wrestling at that non-Olympic weight class at 92, and I'm sure scored some points. I mean, you know how to look up that stuff better than we do, but he is now at 86, which is the Olympic weight, which Brooks wrestled in. But if Brooks goes 90, so that's a perfect example. Brooks is going to probably go 92, and he'll have 0 points if he doesn't wrestle there. And Zahid will hopefully score points at Zagreb, but those points will be at 86. And I actually became friends with Zahid at the Hall of Fame duels, thanks to Lee Pritz, so I got a chance to text him after he won. And, he's like, on to the next, which is kind of what you'd expect the mentality to be of somebody who's that high level. So it's a little complicated, but I think what people need to focus on in general is America had a lot of success. We're a USA Wrestling podcast and we're Americans. So we're highly in favor of that. And then the second thing is this Zagreb tournament carries more impact and meaning than the other 2 tournaments because it counts towards points. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think you want to get some international competition. So if you're spending the money to go overseas and you can be able to get 2 tournaments in the span of kind of a 2-week period, it's a really good opportunity for the U.S. athletes to be able to go over, train, make weight, compete, get new looks, and kind of have a great showing. And once again, the brackets are kind of smaller. It's not necessarily like a world championships or anything like that. So, but you still get to mix it up with some international competition. So I think one of the biggest things to take away from probably the first couple of them is that the United States athletes have been looking very good on the international scene. You're bringing home a lot of gold medals and a lot of placing at these tournaments. So I feel we're in a really good place. One or 2 athletes that I forgot to mention were the Mondays.
Yeah.
Quincy winning it. And, and I think you'll see a lot of those guys at the ranking series event here. And then just remember that this is also the exact same location where World Championships will be in September, will be in Zagreb, Croatia for
that's
seniors.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. I think Kennedy won it and Quincy might have taken second, but I might have those flip-flop. But either way, they both made the finals. And it's interesting because I feel like the American team's kind of in a little bit of a transition, right? Like, no more David Taylor. Burroughs, I don't know how many more he's going to do. We don't know how many more Dake is going to do. Believe Zane is probably no one's actually retiring these days. They're just fading out. But, there were some older guys there. It sure looks like in 28, it'd be Snyder and Brooks going for the same spot at 97. We don't know if Gable Stevenson's coming back. So, there's just a lot of change. I mean, Spencer Lee has kind of been, a guy that, Mark was right about. I was like, I don't think he even makes it healthy to the Olympic trials. And he was, as usual, right. And glad to be wrong about that because he wrestled amazing at the trials and at the Olympics. But, we have a fantastic system in America with the clubs and then the RTCs. And these guys are getting better and women are getting better faster and faster, like people like Kilty and Blades wrestling on college teams. And as in Iowa, for example, but like I saw William Penn has 2 young ladies from Nigeria wrestling that are world-class, they're coming in the semester. Like it's a cool time to be watching wrestling in America, international style. Mark, I know GT understands this stuff better than you and I do at the sort of highly detailed level, but as a person that loves wrestling and has certainly made an attempt to embrace the international things more as a result of being on this podcast, how exciting is it to see, the folks like the Daytons that we saw come through college, but some of the current college people as well, or the right out of colleges like the Will Lewans of the world.
Yeah, it's a fun time, I think, to follow the guys that you've seen on the mat the last 5-6 years in college, and now they're doing, really good things on the international side. I think Spencer, he spent a total of less than 1 period and won 5 matches on the mat when he wrestled, over in Paris for the one he wrestled in. Mike, I got a question though, Grant, For ranking series, how many can the Americans have in each weight? And is there a limit?
I don't think that there's a limit to entries.
Okay.
I think at the ranking series events, and I'll double check that, Mark, but I think that you're basically is kind of like an open tournament.
Okay.
Once again, I don't think that necessarily is a like a continental championship where you're only allowed your one entry and all that. But I don't think that they would be restrictive to seeing how many people can obtain points. Multiple times throughout the year, you'll see multiple USA athletes ranked in the top 20 in the world.
Yep.
By being able to go to these certain events. And I think that they want to have participation at said events because it's, I don't know, I like to describe it very similar to like golf. You know, it's like the US Open, it's the Masters, it's the, you know, like you have these fundamental places where you can kind of go and get points, along with all of the other ranking series that will happen this year. Once again, if it falls on the calendar where you want to go compete, go compete. So
I guess my other big takeaway from the weekend, and maybe this will kind of close it up, Zahid beating Marsteller by tech is just unheard of because Marsteller's a top quality athlete and he just absolutely dominated him. And I'm not sure if that's a weight thing. If he's
not an 86 guy though.
Okay, but
he's 74/79. He's 74/79 and he wrestled 86.
Okay.
And you're talking about a 74/79 that bumped 86 and then a light 92 that bumped down to 86.
Okay.
I still think that it's a very good showing by Zahid. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway is that you have somebody like, Chance Marsteller, who's been ranked in the world and done a really good job at 79 kg. And then, basically he's one of those guys that has to determine where he wants to be able to go. Right. So he's going to have to either go to 74 or 86 to make his, Olympic run. And I think that you see somebody like Chance that's going to probably be at 79 for the next 3 years, unless he decides that he wants to go down or up. I think that probably for him, it's a pretty good idea to stay at 79. But I think Zahid looked really good in those matches that he wrestled overseas. And then I think heading into this ranking series event, you're going to probably see some upgraded talent that will be at the ranking series versus the tournament in Bulgaria. But I'm excited for what Zahid is going to look like here in this next year. I'm really excited about his match with Aaron Brooks here in about a month.
Yeah, up there in Iowa, at Coralville. And I think I'm going to be up there with you, GT, for that. And Mark, I probably, never mind. I was going to say you can pretend you're sick, but we can't put that on the air. So Mark's not going to make it, but he wishes he could. We had this conversation. So, but yeah, those kind of matches are awesome. Shout out to Flo for putting those matches together. Also with Takatani and Carr and Ono and Lee and a bunch of other matches coming up, so we'll preview that when we get to it. So anyway, lots to get to, but GT, thank you for your expertise on that because, we're in the middle of college season and I think that's a thing people focus on, but it's important that people understand that. Also, quickly on the international side, there was at least an article that came out that said Ono was going to go down to 57 and Higuchi was going to go up to 61. And I think the last thing to say about this is when you mentioned like Marsteller or this and that, like the non-Olympic weights are super important and USA Wrestling has made it a priority to stress those non-Olympic weights. Like where a guy like Dake and Jaden Cox and those guys could sort of live in those weights and be rewarded financially for them. Same thing with JG at 70, right? And Vito at 61. And, they didn't have to make those cuts for as long. And they were able to win world titles and medals and make world teams and things like that. It's such a consolidation when you get to the Olympics. And I think more Americans than ever will try to make the team in 28 with the games being in LA. I don't think that's any sort of reach. That it's nice to spread it out. And it's nice that USA Wrestling has kept a good emphasis on those weight classes in the non-Olympic years. So I I hope I'm not saying anything dumb there, GT. You've been there longer than I have, but I feel like it's a good thing that USA Wrestling is doing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bunch of other things. So we'll get into college. Here, we're just going to go through the upsets. Thank you, Flow Wrestling. McGill from Columbia over in Contrera. MJ Gaitan over number 9, Sachs. Soriano from Drexel over 15, Chappelle Bucknell. Ethan Stiles, number 33, over Jordan Williams. Sam Goyne from Indiana over number 17, Jaden Bullock. Joey Cruz over Brandon McCrone. Oliveri over Pacino. The rest of these guys that got upset. Moses Schwartz beat Cale Happel, and Frost beat Tegan Jameson. Alvarez beat Ty Whalen. Dean Peterson beat Luke Lillidow. Caleb Fish beat Ryder Downey. Trying to see if there's anybody else really like in the top 10. And then Cale Happel, number 5, beat Tegan Jameson, number 4. I don't really think that's an upset. I guess it's an upset. And Karchla beat Kennedy, number 6, beat number 5. Okay, so we're going to unfortunately probably just touch on some things this week, guys, and not drill down as deep as we normally do because there's so much. Something for people to look into. The first set of coaches rankings are out. If your person is not in there, it's probably because they don't have enough matches yet. And Mark, we always talked about this as we did our rankings. You know, like I think the hardest one was the year when Kyle Snyder was doing everything but wrestling in college, and like, would you pull him out? And it's not really fair because we know he's going to wrestle at the end of the year. And then it also screws up the team rankings because you take those points out, either 20 or 16, where he was ranked with Gwizdowski, you know, because Ohio State's a better team than not having Snyder in the lineup. So I don't know if you took a peek at the coaches rankings yet or not. Have you?
I have.
So is it fair to say that they're not too far from the national rankings?
They're pretty close. I mean, there's a few kids that aren't even on it. Like Gable obviously is not on it at heavyweight, who we all know is wrestling, has been wrestling, just doesn't have the matches in. Same thing at 141. The athlete from Lehigh is not in there right now. So, yeah, I mean, there's some guys that aren't in it, but they haven't wrestled for a while, and so they'll be there. I think the thing about Schneider, David, is that the year he did it, we didn't know if he had enough matches in when he got to NCAA, if he was even going to be seated. And
I don't think he actually, to be fair, I don't think he did. I think they just did the right thing because you can't make him the 33 seed and put him against Liz coming off the pigtail. So it's funny because they say they have this rubric and formula and then they just massage it. And in this case, I think they did the right thing.
Agreed.
But let's not say these rules are hard and fast, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. A couple of things just to point out in terms of those rankings. Mark Anthony McGowan, who is a huge recruit, is back at Princeton. When I talked to Dubuque, he said he was kind of banged up first semester. Christian Carroll has left Iowa State. According to Dresser, he left on good terms. He's a guy that's committed to several schools, was originally at Oklahoma State. Younger Bastida is out for the year. Iowa State, which we're going to get in that duel shortly here, has had a lot of problems with injuries this year, and so it's a bummer for them. Younger Bastida is one of my favorite guys to watch wrestle, just period, like how he wrestles. And Trey Munoz, Willie Saylor posted, is going to take a medical red shirt. So, again, not saying that's fact, but Willie's almost always right about this stuff. So wanted to say that. We were talking off-air, guys, about the Cleveland State decision. And Mark, you had some thoughts on it, that it's not just wrestling and it has more to do with the economics. What people should know is that several years ago when they dropped it the first time, the student body agreed to pay an extra $3 per credit hour to keep the program. I can tell you this is what happened in Merrimack. They cut a bunch of programs, including wrestling, and we were given a chance. If you go to this meeting, you get, I think it's like 10 minutes of uninterrupted time. And the baseball coach said, if you just charged everybody for a parking pass, because they didn't charge for parking, and if you charged everybody $10 a semester or $12 if they were full-time for 12 hours or more, you could save all these sports. They wouldn't even propose it. And I don't know the perfect analogy of this, but it's like Mark, you and I have decided we're not going to be friends, for whatever reason, which would have to be terrible. And then Grant proposes something that's totally reasonable. And you're like, no, we just don't want to be friends. So it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you do. We've already made this decision. This relationship is over. And the problem with this is they make these decisions and a bunch of people protest, and 1 in a million times it actually changes, then they reverse course. I'll say this and I'll get out of your way. People thinking that they should move the Nationals from Cleveland is ludicrous. B, is not going to happen. And C, wouldn't change anything at Cleveland State at all. Like, those things have been decided. People paid money. The bids have been done. I certainly know for sure Kansas City and Tulsa would take it, if they were going to pull it. But that's not going to happen. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, everything I've read and heard about this is that the school's in debt. They're losing millions of dollars a year. So it's not just an athletic thing. They're going to cut 6% of their staff at the college. So, it's getting kids to go to school there. So they're going to bring in what I'm told is they're going to bring in lacrosse, and they're going to drop 3 sports: wrestling, women's softball, and what was the other one, Grant? There was one more.
Women's golf, wrestling, and women's softball.
Okay. And they're going to bring in lacrosse. And the reason that I think they said that they want to bring in lacrosse, and they're not saying this, but this is what experts are saying, is that lacrosse is kind of a wealthy type of sport. And you get a lot of East Coast people from, those states that have money, and they think that's going to bring money into the school. And that's kind of what they're looking for. So we'll see what happens. I hate to see Cleveland State lose, any of their programs, because we don't want to start losing wrestling programs, because we don't have, that many of them, and you can't afford to lose any. So.
Yeah, that's well said. Okay, so let's talk about some dual meet results. GT, we can start with Iowa State, Oklahoma State. You were there. I got to talk to you on the drive home on Sunday, and it was on Big ESPN. So that was great. Iowa State really won just about every match they could, to be honest, and, ended up losing the duel. They're just outgunned in the second half, but it's tough for them with no Bastida, no Connor Uten. That team is going to be really good next year, by the way. Mark and I were talking about it off the air. They bring back Swiderski. If they bring back Echemendia, they got some good recruits coming in. But your thoughts on that duel and being there, and just your thoughts?
Well, I mean, once again, I think it's really cool to see ESPN, basically host wrestling events. I think Iowa State's done a really good job with both of those opportunities that they've had. I'm very, very impressed with the Iowa State level of fight after losing probably 60% of their starting roster throughout the year. And I think also just a big tip of the cap to already having a pretty good team in Oklahoma State, just the level of growth that those young men have. You take a look at, some of those guys are wrestling probably the best they've ever wrestled in their entire careers. So big kudos to David Taylor and his staff on how they kind of performed. And then luckily there was a exhibition bout at the end of the duel between Thomas Gilman and Ortega from Cuba, which was a very cool highlight for some of the collegiate wrestling fans that I talked to. Just being not exposed to freestyle and then knowing who Thomas Gilman is, probably not knowing who Ortega is unless you're, kind of an Iowa State junkie.
Or an international wrestling genius like yourself, one of the two.
Yeah. You kind of lose track of some of those guys, and then it's like, oh, well, what? He's in Ames now? That's crazy. So it was really cool to see and witness, because it was a great match, and Thomas looked really good. Just one scramble was the difference between the two.
Ortega won 4-3. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as far as the duel is concerned, if I'd like just to get into specifics, Iowa State came out razor sharp. Perryman basically took down Spratley twice in the first period, like went after him really heavy. Just kind of the wheels fell off, and Spratley kind of just, took him to deep water a little bit. The Frost boys wrestled extremely well, tight matches. Whitcraft and Jameson wrestled really well, just real close, just kind of one takedown bouts. Pinero looked real good. Carter Young wrestled him pretty salty. Kind of like, I don't know, just watching Twitter and Instagram, a little bit of controversy between Fish and Chittum on, kind of a takedown.
There are stall calls on both sides that probably should have happened. Like, the guy can't be in rear standing for 15 seconds on both sides and not call anything. And you can't just run straight out of bounds and they don't call it. It's, the referee kind of lost control on that one.
Yeah. And I think, after the break, Oklahoma State's, top 5 guys, they're just brutal. Like, that's a tough duel if you're like not equipped up at the upper weights.
You better be beating Oklahoma State at halftime. I mean, like, let's just say that, because you're like, they got Amin, and then Hamady, and then Plott, and then Serber, and then Wyatt, and they're winning against anybody in the country. I'd say 3 of those, maybe not Penn State, but everybody else are winning 3 of 5 of those matches. So,
well, I think
minimum
they're going to do a really good job. I think, just to talk about this duel, they look really dominant, right? And I don't necessarily know if, like, Iowa State's 3rd and 4th string starters are going to be able to compete with Oklahoma State's number 1 starters.
Yeah, and portal guys too
on a consistent basis, right? So
yeah, they're heavy portal their top half is portal / Tuttle.
So I'm excited about that. It was really good atmosphere, and once again, really, really good environment for collegiate wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. And shout out to Dresser. He's hosted Big ESPN twice. Both times Iowa State's been super competitive, at least for most of the duel. Really, in the Iowa State duel, super competitive. So, Mark, let's talk a little bit about Oklahoma State, Northern Iowa. Now, to get into this, we picked this duel, and you got 5 exactly right and 3 right with the wrong point spreads, 2 wrong. Grant was 4-2-4 and I was 4-3-3. So I'd say you won that duel. The one we all got wrong was 157. You were the only one that had Farber winning 133. You had it by decision, which was still a gutsy pick. And then GT was the only one that had Serber winning 197 on one of the craziest scrambles you'll see this season. But your thoughts just in general on that. I will say this. I think Oklahoma State's got to figure out 133. I think they like Cale Hughes a little more than Whitcraft. But Cale Hughes, I think, is struggling with his weight cut, because when he cuts his weight right, he beats Kairini, and when he doesn't, he gets majored by Julian Farber.
Farber's pretty good, though. I mean, I've watched him now a few times.
Okay, but if you pin Kairini, okay.
Yeah, but he
okay, but Mark, Kairini's ranked higher than Farber. Kairini's placed multiple times. Farber hasn't. I'm not saying Farber's a bum or anything. I'm just saying, if you were tied and winning that match with Kairini, and then you go out and get thumped by Farber, it's probably more on your side than you wrestled a different level of competition.
And we had talked that it was a bad weight cut, but
we're guessing. Okay, we don't know that, but it seems likely.
True. But I don't think David cares either way. It's the way they perform when they go out there, and he probably wasn't real happy with it. So
I think he does care. I think he's not going to wrestle him if he doesn't. I think it's going to be
I said David doesn't care if it was a bad weight cut. He expects you to go out and perform.
I know that, but I'm saying I think he does care if it's a bad weight cut. I'm saying, I think you got to be weighing 134, 134 and a half the day before. I think that's where they're going to start checking him.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a good duel. I think UNI has done a really good job also, just like Iowa State. They had a huge crowd, one of their biggest crowds ever. They had a riding mechanical bull there for entertainment. I mean, they did some things that they haven't done in the past. Yeah. And it really brought the crowd up to their feet. I think UNI has done a great job with their program right now. I think up and down the lineup, they're kids that maybe you don't know real well, but they go out and compete really hard. They had a shot at winning that duel. They were favored at 157, and they ended up losing that match. They win that match, they're in it. They're right there. So, and then, Jack Eisen getting a major over Plot again was huge because last time they wrestled, I think it was a 5-point match. We thought that Plot was starting to, close the gap a little bit, and then, it didn't happen. So
Northern Iowa wins that duel if they win 57 or 97. And it's hard to kind of describe the scramble at 97, but I'll try. Volker hits like a head outside shot, gets Serber over his head, kind of puts him down to try to plant him. Serber rolls all the way through with it, which is almost like the jiu-jitsu martial arts way. Like, don't try to resist it. Go faster than the offensive wrestler is expecting it. They come back out north-south, but when you initiate the scramble, you know where you're going to end up first. Gets Volker stretched out, steps over the leg. They called 3. By the way, Doug Schwab's brick throwing prowess, strong. Probably do an 88-mile-per-hour brick out there. They lost the brick. But anyway, so 57 and 97, close. And those would be great rematches in the Big 12 if some of those matches happen. So,
Oklahoma State's just so good once they get them to the top part of their lineup. And one of the, we've talked about Amin going out when he wrestled at Michigan, not scoring any points, kept everything really close. He'd find ways to win in overtime. And he was just really good at that. He has opened up this year. He is scoring points. And I think that's, kudos to the coaching staff for Oklahoma State to get him to open up. Because that's hard to do when you haven't done it for years. So.
Yeah, he's still having struggles with it, like against a Barraclaw, but overall, way more attacks for sure. Yep. Okay, so a couple of other duel results. Rutgers, Illinois had a great duel. Rutgers wins it. It was 5-5, and they knew going in if they won heavyweight to make it 15-15, they would win on total points, which was 38-34. So Bird barely beat Shaver. They win heavyweight. Slavakuski beats Luffman in overtime, and it was really weird. Luffman had Slavakuski's leg in the air, like in that low single ankle position, and walked him out of bounds. And then Slavakuski takes a shot, and I think Luffman just got tired. But, you got to finish that shot. Like that, you have a chance to win the duel. It's a big duel. Yep. And Rutgers went bonkers there, so that was interesting. The Rutgers-Penn State duel probably had 2 of the more interesting results of the year. Dean Peterson beats Luke Lillidow 4-1 or 4-2. I don't know if Luke got out at the end. It's a takedown, like 20 seconds left. I think we've talked about this. Lillidow wrestles a lot of close matches. He's a true freshman, but good win for Peterson for sure. Yep. Luke will drop a little bit in the rankings, but he's kind of cushioned by the fact that he beat Caleb Smith the week before. And then probably one of the more absurd results, which I don't think could have ever happened. Actually, I shouldn't say this. The way it was going, this could have happened in the 2-point takedown era, but didn't. The score was 0-0 going into the third period of Bar Poznansky, and Bar got an escape and 7 takedowns in like a minute 40 and teched Poznansky. Now, GT Grandview is known for good cardio. Have you had a guy tech anybody in basically a half a period without back points in your life?
I would have to go deep into the archive of coaching. There's definitely matches where we've either stormed the ball all the way back, or can't remember a guy having an epic collapse. But
and if you could, you wouldn't bring that up, which is fair.
I would not bring it up. Definitely on a national syndicated, definitely put those guys on blast for sure. More practice room collapses than competition collapses.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, that was epic, right?
I think it was the great and powerful Shane Sparks says the scoreboard got tired.
Yeah, got exhausted. Yeah, exactly.
Minute 40 of the scoreboard, 0-0.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that was interesting. And then the other duel was Iowa against Ohio State. No Ayala, which in itself is not a big deal, except for the fact that Iowa Penn State is this weekend. Two of the bigger surprises. One was the result, and another one was the gap. 25, Joey Cruz, who's been steady, but kind of steady in the sense that he's beaten all the guys that weren't ranked and hadn't beaten anybody who is ranked. Takes down McCrone twice. McCrone picks top the third period, gets a couple stall calls and riding time, but it's not enough, and he loses. And then 74, Karchla beats Kennedy. And in that duel, Mark, you and I each had 6 right, 2 wrong. 2 right with the wrong point spread, and then 1 wrong, and then 1 no match because of 133. You got heavyweight right, Heater over Feldman, and I got Karchla right with 74 right with Karchla over Kennedy, and that was 2 takedowns to none, and Kennedy never really touched Karchla's legs, Mark. And I kind of think if you picked Kennedy, you thought he would get Karchla tired, and it just didn't happen.
No, he did get him tired. Karchla was tired at the end. He just wasn't able to get in and do anything.
Well, he wasn't tired enough that it made any difference.
It wasn't 19 points in the third period tired. You're right.
It was 0 tired, so it didn't make any difference. So, I mean, I'm saying, maybe he was tired, but it didn't change anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's I guess it implied when I said if you picked Kennedy, you thought he would get him tired enough to score.
Yeah.
So he didn't do that.
He did not.
So, I mean, that's – again, I don't think we actually know if he was tired because nobody announced that. So Brand's playing it super coy about Ayala, which is what he should do. So we talked about a couple of other things. So the Ivy Leagues, and this is something I don't really understand how they did this. It feels like the NCAA changed their mind. The Ivy Leagues are not opting into the revenue share, but are somehow still going to get to wrestle Division I. And we were told that wasn't the case, that you had to opt into revenue share to be Division I. I think that is interesting in a lot of reasons. We're just mentioning it because we are going to pick Penn State, Iowa, and I want each of us to have some time on that because there's several matches and aren't just like, I'll pick person A. But it does change the paradigm a little bit because it was sort of presented as it's an either or. Like if you don't revenue share, you can't be D1. Now, I don't know if they made an exception for the Ivy Leagues. I don't know. I feel like the NCAA is losing control of the NCAA, which is actually probably a good thing. But I don't know if you guys have any quick thoughts on that before we go on to the next subject.
I mean, I don't understand a lot of what is happening between revenue sharing and non-revenue sharing, and if schools can opt in, schools can opt out. I just feel like there's a lot of gray area for the administrators. I think also on the standpoint of everything that's coming to the fall of 2025 and everything that is currently going on with collegiate athletics. I'm very much at a loss when it comes to like when that came out the other day. I was like, oh, well, what are they going to do?
Right. Yes. It makes the waters muddier, not clearer, for sure.
Right. And it's like, okay, well then now they're just taking in a completely different approach. Now, what other conference may try to do that, or what other schools would be like, oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe we can do that.
Yeah.
And I think I would have a tough time as an athletic director and or president of a university trying to figure this stuff out because it just seems like it's so wishy-washy and gray. And then there's just so much. Then your conference realignment, schools, sports, divisions. there's just so many different aspects of those contracts and or deals that once again, I'm very uneducated on the subject. So it's one of those things that I would have to be schooled up on what is actually going to happen. So I would love to hear from the Ivy League people and talk to me in layman's terms.
And I was surprised by it because I think football and basketball are the horses and we're the cart in wrestling. And, off the top of my head, I can't think of any football or basketball powerhouses coming out of the Ivy League. But I think it might be that the NCAA is politically, these schools are, it kind of touches a little bit on what Mark said about lacrosse and Cleveland State. The wealthier your alumni are, the higher education, the whiter the collar versus blue collar, the more likely you are to have donors coming back to you. And it would kill those schools if they couldn't compete in Division I. So I don't know if somebody from the Ivy Leagues collectively just wrote a check to the NCAA. That is just my thought suggestion. That is not the thought or suggestion or idea of Mark, Grant, or USA Wrestling. Okay. But stranger things have happened. And I don't even know if it's illegal or arguably unethical. Hey, I've got money. I want these kids to be able to stay in this level of competition. So, and I hate to open the can of worms and not be able to dig into it, but we can come back to it next week. The other thing I failed to mention, which Mark and I talked about, Ja'Cory Teemer's back. And he is back. He beat Sasso, and I'm good friends with Lee Pritz, and he is exactly what Lee Pritz said at his best. He'll lull you to sleep. He'll make you look like he's tired. He's kind of like Barry Sanders or Jim Brown. Every time they got tackled, they got up they're never going to run the ball again. And then the next play, they run over 3 guys or fake 3 guys and go for 80 yards. When he wants to go, my goodness, is he explosive, right, Mark?
Yeah, he's good. I do have a question on the Ivy League schools, David, just real quick. I know we got other things to talk about. I'm under the assumption Ivy League schools do not give athletic scholarships. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's all need-based. But they do have NIL money.
I understand that. But could that have something to do with profit sharing, that they don't give athletic scholarships? So that's maybe how they're getting out of the profit sharing part of it.
It's probably the smartest. It's probably the smartest answer of anything. Yes, you're probably right. It's a great question / suggestion / observation. Yes, 100%.
Okay.
So well done by you. Seriously. We are going to talk. So Kevin Ward, the coach at West Point, said rules changes are coming up. So there's going to be some suggestions. I would say this publicly. We should all think about some rules changes that we think, and we'll talk about it next week, because I think that's an entire podcast. We have 17 minutes, give or take, left. But I think there's some things we'd like to see changed. So something to think about there. Let's quickly go through the rankings and then pick Penn State, Iowa. Okay, so your rankings are brought to you by Matt Kings. Love these guys. Flow and Win put out the rankings. Intermat have not. So interesting, Lillidow drops to 9. He's behind Caleb Smith. Lillidow is 9-8. Caleb Smith is 6-4. Steve O'Poulin moves up. Dean Peterson moves up. Still behind Lillidow. So Brendan McCrone drops. Bunch of movement at the bottom. 133. So Crookham is still in with Flow. That's interesting to see. No other changes at the top. I feel like Ayala is probably the favorite at this weight right now. With Tyler Knox as a big dark horse. 141, Tegan Jameson drops a few spots after losing to Happel. Jacob Frost moves up after beating Tegan Jameson. So Jameson obviously lost twice that weekend, or this past weekend. Moses Schwartz beat Happel. So just a goofy Rubik's Cube there. The seeding at 149 in the Big 12 is going to be fun. 149, Colin Real Budo moves up. Cannon Webster moves up. Ty Whalen lost to Sammy Alvarez. Jordan Williams lost to Ethan Stiles. 157, no changes. Well, Johnny Lovett, but no changes in the top 16. 165, Bubba Wilson. Don't know why Bubba Wilson got bumped. like Christopher Minto coming in makes more sense because he's wrestling. Cam Steed won by injury default over Nico Ruiz. So Cam Steed has to be ranked over Nico Ruiz. They wrestled and he hurt him and then he won. So,
Hey, David, can you do 157 real quick again? Just
yeah.
So they got, okay. All right. Go back up. Tyler Kasich's number 1 now?
Well, Flo's got him at 3. Wynn's got him at 1. They both averaged. All 3 of these guys averaged out to 2. Do you see that?
Yep.
So
it's kind of a 3-way tie.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I would think Teamer's 1, Meyer Shapiro's 2. And I think the way Flo has it is right. Teamer 1, Shapiro 2, Kasich 3.
Okay.
Because I think that's how Intermat would have it too when it comes out today.
Okay.
Sorry, I just looked at that and looked over to the right, but I get it for people that didn't. Okay. Alex Kramer moves up, and Contreras moves down. No other big changes. Simon Ruiz is having a really good freshman year. Gavin Sachs, we talked about, got upset, so he dropped 4 spots.
Hamidi is phenomenal. He is so good right now. He's going to make a run at that weight.
It's just tough. We talked about this. Oklahoma State's 3 best guys are behind 6 national champions. Jackson Smith moves up. Colton Hawks is banged up, guys. I don't know if he's going to come back in time, but he's clearly a blood round guy. And so, he and Foka had a battle. So interesting thing to watch there. Gabe Arnold. We'll talk about Gabe Arnold and Strachey in a minute because the trash talk there is phenomenal. 97, no changes in the top 16. Nick Feldman drops after losing to Keeter. He's still in the top 8. And Gadiali is out for the year. And my guess with everything that is going on with Campbell is Gadiali is going to be a major prize in the transfer portal because, again, if you look at this way, Trumbull is a non-senior, Feldman is a non-senior, Keeter's a non-senior, Jimmy Mullins a non-senior, and everybody else is a senior in the top 13. And then Pitzer, and then those are the guys in the top 17. If you go all the way down, Lucas Stoddard, I mean, it gets thin fast. I mean, if you add Bastida back, but Gadiali immediately – if these rankings are right, Gadiali would be 2 in the country because he beat Feldman at the All-Star meet. Mm-hmm. Team rankings, Penn State 136, Iowa 101, Oklahoma State 73, Nebraska 66, Minnesota 58, Ohio State 47, UNI 45, BTech 36, Cornell basically 36, NC State and Stanford 32, 32 and a half. Then a bunch of teams in that 28 range. So a few things to look at there. Okay. Mark, if you want to talk next week about who was and wasn't at the Penn State Rutgers duel, we can do that. But let us pick Penn State and Iowa. I think, to me, the most competitive high-level duel of the year will be Iowa-Oklahoma State. Mark and I have picked this 17 times, Grant, off the air. It is always 5-5, and it comes down to bonus. I don't think this is 5-5, but I do think that this is probably going to be the most watched duel of the year. So here it is. Let me read off the matchups for people first. Lilladale against Cruz, Braden Davis, Ayala, Bartlett, Block, Van Ness, Parco, Kasich, Teamer, Messenbrink, Kelly, Endo, Haynes, Kennedy, Strachey, Arnold / Ferrari, Barr, Buchanan, Kirkfleet, Keeter. Everybody's ranked literally in the top 11 except Block and Cruz. So many highlight matchups to talk about here. But we will do what we always do. Grant, you and I will be our sacrificial lambs to Mark as he gets this right. And Mark, do you want to talk about how bad you're beating me on the point spreads this year? Or
I really don't, David, because I think it's embarrassing right now.
It's
and I don't want to throw you under the bus at this time. So we'll see what happens later on. But right now you're down double digits. You were down 2 when we started the week, and I think it got to a point where it was almost going to be 18 down. But
it was
that
14.
didn't happen. You made a big valiant run in the Iowa State-Iowa duel.
Yeah.
Or Iowa State-Oklahoma State duel. You won 3 out of 4 matches.
Yes.
One was very questionable, but what was amazing me, David, is that we came so close on the point spread.
Yeah, we did do a good job of picking the spreads, because when we pick half points, so you can't pick it exactly right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, Mark, we'll do this as we always do. Mark, then Grant, then David, and rotate. Lilladale, Cruz. Who you got?
I'm gonna go Lilladale, but I was gonna go Major early on, but Cruz is wrestling really well on his feet, and I don't think Luke is gonna spend a lot of time on top where Cruz is not strong. So I'm gonna take Lilladale by decision.
GT.
Lilladale by decision.
We will make that a clean sweep. 33. Let's assume Ayala's wrestling, because I think like if Hernandez is wrestling, we're all picking Davis by like decision or major. So let's say, Grant, you're up first here. Braden Davis, Drake Ayala.
I'm going to take Ayala by decision.
I will as well. I think it's not a blowout. They wrestled last year a couple times at 25, right, Mark?
They wrestled once.
Just the duel.
Yep.
Okay. And they didn't wrestle at Big Tens.
No.
Okay. And Braden Davis was the Big Ten champ last year.
He was, and he was the number 1 seed at Nationals.
Yeah. Okay. And with that being said, you're picking Ayala by tech fall. Is that right?
No, by decision.
Okay. All right. I got Bartlett by decision. I feel like it's a 6 or 7 point match against Block. Mark?
I'm going to take Bartlett by major. I just think he's too good and he's explosive, and I think it could be an 8-point win for him. So I think Bartlett will be going after a major.
Okay. GT.
I'm going to take Bartlett by a major.
Okay. All right. 49. Mark, you're first here. I feel like there's 2 or 3, I think 3 super marquee matchups. And to me, it's 49, 57, 97. Yep. I mean, there's a bunch of other great matches, but okay. Van Ness.
This is a tough one for me because I really think Shane Van Ness, I kind of picked him early in the year to win nationals, but I really like the way Parko's wrestling.
Are you getting off the train?
I think I am. I'm going to take Parko by decision.
Wow. All right. It's at Penn State, right?
It's at Penn State, yes. But if anybody's got enough kahunas to go into Penn State and win, it's Parko. He's been through this. He's beaten really good guys away from home. He beat Lovett last year at Nebraska toward the end of the year when Lovett was the consensus number 1 guy. So he loves the spotlight, and he's wrestling about as good as he's ever wrestled. So that's why I'm taking him.
All right. GT.
We'll take Parko by decision.
Anything you would add on to Mark's commentary? Like, do you feel like it's a turn? Is it a 1 takedown match? How do you see it?
I mean, I think Parko is pretty solid on his defense. I think it's not going to just be a 1 takedown affair. I think it's going to be probably 2 takedowns for Parko. I mean, Shane wrestles pretty wide open. It's kind of got him in trouble against like Ridge and some other things like that. But I think Parko is, he's a seasoned vet. I mean, he can go wrestle anywhere. Yeah. But I just feel like if I was going to hold serve in the first couple of matches, that they got to get that. They got to have that one.
They got to have it for sure. I think the encouraging thing about the Van Ness Ridge Lovett match, if you're a Penn State fan, is Van Ness got away from Lovett at least once off the whistle. So I'm going to take Van Ness at home, bounce back sort of thing. I know it's been a week or 2, but Mark is selling Shane Van Ness stock, and I'll buy it. So Mark's lack of loyalty here is apparent. But anyway, all right. What?
It happens.
It happens, yeah. Okay, so this match, Tyler Kasak, Ja'Cory Teamer. GT, you're up first. Who you got?
We'll take Teamer by decision.
Okay, me too. And I would not have said that till this last week. And I figured you could see certain things, right? You could read the tea leaves and go, okay, when Estrada wrestled his 5th date against Illinois, Tom and Terry and Morningstar no teamers coming back, blah, blah, blah. But he came back and looked awesome. And so I just think he's a little too explosive, too crafty, too athletic, just too much Ja'Cory Teamer for Kasich. I think he wins I think he gets a takedown early and may or may not get another one late, either when he wants to or when Kasich has to come to him. Mark.
I'm going to go with Teamer. I'm just trying to decide if he's going to get a decision or a major. Because when he wants to go, I don't know who's going to stop him. I mean, this kid is so quick, so explosive. I don't think Kasich's ever seen anything like it. But because it's at Penn State, I'm going to go Teamer by decision.
Okay. Mitchell Messenbrink, Caliendo, I'm first here. Caliendo's looked great all year. Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm going to take Messenbrink, and I'm going to take him by major, just pace late. I think this match is kind of close for like 2 2.25 periods, and then I think Messenbrink gets one in the dam burst open. Mark.
I'm going to take I got to take Messenbrink, but I'm going to go by a decision. I think Caliendo will score. I think he'll probably get a couple takedowns in the first 2 periods.
Wow.
Messenbrink, but I think Messenbrink, like you said, that gas tank in that 3rd period, and it's not even their great shot. It's just so much movement back and forth. It's almost impossible unless you can get your hands on them and keep them right in front of you. But I think Caliendo's got a shot here, so I'm going to go Messenbrink just by a decision.
Okay, GT.
I'm going to take Messenbrink by a major. I just think that Messenbrink's style, along with Caliendo, I think Caliendo will take some really good attempts, and I think Messenbrink will just weasel his way out of them. But I clearly think that at this weight class, number 1 versus number 2, it's going to be fireworks. I think both those guys come to wrestle. They're not going to play it safe. They're not going to play shutdown defense. They both go and attack.
Yes.
I think it just means – I think – the style of Messenbrink to Caliendo, I think, opens it up a little bit more than maybe what Caliendo's felt this year. And I think Caliendo's wrestled the best he's ever wrestled in his career this year. I just think it's going to be right at 8 points. I think it's going to be like a last-second takedown. I think Messenbrink's going to try to get it, especially if it's, once again, at Penn State. I think Messenbrink will do that for the duel. He'll try to go get some extra bonus points while at home.
Yep. All right, GT, I want you to pay 100% attention here. Mark, who you got, Kennedy or Levi Haynes?
I'm going to go Levi Haynes.
You liar.
What?
You liar.
No, I never said I was taking Kennedy over Haynes.
You did yesterday.
I did not.
Oh, I'm done with you.
Good.
Done with you.
Levi Haynes.
You said Kennedy is too physical for. Oh my God! I'm gonna start recording our calls.
You need to record things.
What?
Because you're confused.
I cannot use the words on the air that I feel about that choice. Good Lord.
All right. I heard earlier in the podcast we aren't even going to be friends after this. So, and Grant said it. Grant's going to try to.
We're not friends. Hey, Mark, we're not friends. We're family.
Okay.
It's a higher level than that. In spite of your changing of the mind.
By decision. I think it's 5-point victory for Haynes.
All right. GT, sorry for the false alarm based on the dishonesty of my family member. Grant, who you got?
I'm gonna take Levi Haynes by a decision.
Same here.
I think PK is great. I think he's good at this. I just think Haynes is at another level.
Yeah.
And I think PK is at extremely high level. I think that it's not a knock on PK at all. I just think Haynes has got him.
And we haven't talked about this, but it feels like Nelson Brands is not really in the equation anymore. We haven't heard about him. We haven't seen him on the bench. And, maybe PK knew something the rest of us didn't. when we're all saying he should transfer out. So, okay, Carter Strachey, Gabe Arnold. It's Grant's turn to pick. But Gabe Arnold in the post-Ohio State press conference, after beating the number 18 guy in overtime, announced they were coming to beat Iowa or beat Penn State, and that he was coming for Carter Strachey's head. Carter Strachey's response was, I didn't know that was their starter. I thought the other guy / Ferrari was a better wrestler. It's so high level, fantastic, good. I'm going to say this. I'm going to be very disappointed if they don't wrestle Gabe Arnold against Strachey, but I actually think it would be smarter to wrestle Ferrari, because I think Strachey will try to remove a limb from Gabe Arnold once he gets on top of him. All right. GT, you're up first here.
I'm going to take, if it's Carter Strachey versus Gabe Arnold, I think Strachey wins by decision.
Okay.
I think that if they wrestle Ferrari, I think Carter Strachey wins by decision. I just think that Carter is he's just that good, man. I don't care who Iowa puts out against them. Carter's winning.
Okay. I agree, but I think if it's against Gabe Arnold, it's a major. I think he goes and gets it. I think he tries to break him. I think he tries to physically impose his will on him. I think, like, the thing about Carter Strachey is, besides Keckeisen, he hasn't had a lot of challenges this year. And I think, like you kind of let sleeping dogs lie. I think they kicked the wrong sleeping dog. So, Mark, are you going to make up for your lie with Patrick Kennedy and pick Gabe Arnold?
I never said that, number one, but that's okay, David. You keep saying it. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think if Gabe wrestles, and I really truly think that they probably should wrestle Ferrari here. I think he gives them a better chance at winning.
That's a fascinating sentence.
He can win, but he gives them a better chance. I do think Ferrari can take down Strachey. Strachey has not been taken down this year, so I'm going to predict that he does take him down if he wrestles. But I think it's probably going to be a decision either way for Strachey over either Gabe or Ferrari.
Okay. So
I'm picking Ferrari to get a takedown on Strachey, which would be a first for the year.
Oh, by the way, Grant, you won the chicken wing bet on number of takedowns in the Iowa-Ohio State duel.
I took the over.
You had 11.
Boom.
Mark wants to file a protest because Ayala didn't wrestle, but I'm like, protest.
Yeah, that you would have lost if Ayala wrestled.
Protest. Hey, you also picked Patrick Kennedy, so you have to live with that. So Mark, our Grant won wings. So just so you know, it's out there. Okay, so this to me is the match that my opinion has moved the most since the beginning of the year. This is Josh Barr against Buchanan. And in the beginning of the year, Mark was the only one to pick Barr to be an All-American. Matt thought he'd be like a round of 12, round of 16 guy. He's killing people. So he's beaten Beard, he's beaten Little, he destroyed Poznansky late. I'm gonna pick Buchanan just because I think he can handle Barr's pace. I think he's a well-conditioned athlete. I think he's still a little bit better at wrestling. And I think he's a little more athletic, and I don't think the cardio is going to be enough to wear him out. So I'll take Buchanan with Barr firing off shots late. Mark.
Yeah. I think Barr's the real deal. He's just, even at the beginning of the year, I thought he was going to be good just because of the room he's in and the workout partners he has. But he's even surprised me at the level that he's at. But Buchanan has been through it. He's done it. He's in his 5th year, maybe a 6th year of wrestling. He's a 3-time, 4-time All-American.
So I've got
to take Buchanan by decision.
Okay, GT.
You can make waves here, GT. You really could. I know you want to do it.
here's what I'll preface. Between Buchanan and Barr, they are going to wrestle 3 times, I think, this year.
Dual
I
Big
think
Tens and then NCAA semifinals or finals.
I think Barr gets 2 out of the 3. I don't know if he gets this one.
Wow. I like it. This is the Mark Ostrander call last year, and he was right. Go ahead. I love it.
So I think Buchanan is, I think he's the clear-cut number 1 guy in the nation. I think Ferrari is probably clear-cut, probably number 2 guy in the nation right now. And the argument for Josh Barr being, either 3rd or 4th
with Cardenas,
is legitimate. Because I think that what's going to happen here is whoever wins this is the number 1 seed at the conference.
Well, somebody still has to wrestle Michigan, but yes, as of this point, yeah.
But I think no matter who wins this particular bout, I think they go on to be the number 1 seed at the Big Tens. And I think that whoever wins the Big Ten is the number 1 seed at the national tournament.
I would say this with the caveat that if somehow they all had 1 loss, Ferrari could sneak in as the 1 seed. But yes.
I would agree that that's a possibility, but I just don't think that Ferrari's done enough in order to supplant.
No, I think coaches
vote.
I agree with you. Coaches vote will make the Big Ten champ the 1 seed.
I think so.
So you're taking Josh Barr, sounds like.
No, I'm going to take Buchanan for this one.
Okay, all right.
But I think you give Josh Barr more time, as we've kind of seen this year, and continue to have him continue to progress.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a monster by the end of the year. And then once again, if Penn State gets a guy to the national tournament, they do pretty well.
Penn State's not very good at breaking down film and making adjustments, but maybe they'll make a change this time and do better. So, yeah. All right, Kirkfleet, Keeter. Mark, you got Keeter by major, right?
No. I did pick Keeter against Ohio State.
You did.
Which was an awfully good call at the time.
Yeah, it was as good as your Kennedy pick against Carson.
Now that the match is over, it was a great pick. I'm going to go Kirkfleet, but I think it's going to be by a decision.
Okay. GT.
I'll take Kirkfleet by Tech.
Wow. Okay.
Not going to happen, Grant.
I will take the uprights and split the uprights and take Kirkfleet by major. So, Mark, you have Iowa winning 1, 2, 3, 4 matches. You have them at 12. Penn State with 1 bonus point, 19-12. GT, you have Iowa winning 1, 2, 3, 4 matches. 12. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 bonus points. 18-4 is 22. I have 1, 2. I only have Iowa winning 3 matches. Penn State winning with 1, 2, 3 bonus points, so 24-9. So here's what's interesting, guys. The point spread is 20. Like, I would be awfully tempted. You guys have it 19-12, 22-12, 24-9. Like, I would take Iowa in 20 points, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would take that. I think that this is the one thing that is something that we didn't even talk about. Penn State could run the table on it.
Penn State could. Here's the other thing on the 20 is I think that entire bet depends on, besides some coin flips, does Ayala wrestle? Right? Because if Ayala wrestles, it's 3 Iowa in our picks. Okay, in our picks.
Actually, in my picks, it's 4 Iowa.
You have Drake with a bonus?
I got Iowa winning 4 matches against Penn State.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying 3 team points.
Yes.
3 team points, but if Braden Davis wrestles Hernandez, it's probably 4 points Penn State. It's a 7-point swing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, again, it doesn't matter with your guys' picks because you have it a 7 and a 10-point spread. I have it at 15, so that would be the difference. That it's a kick over the 20. But what we have the same here, this is interesting. We have 25 the same, 33 the same, 57 the same, 74 the same, 97 the same. Those are sames. And then we have 65 the same except for the bonus, 84 the same except for bonus, heavyweight the same except for bonus. So the and 41 the same except for bonus. So the only difference in our picks is 49, where I have Van Ness and you guys have Parco. And I don't think anybody reasonably could make fun of either one of those picks. There's like really good, valid reasoning on both sides, right? Like Parco's looked really good. He's undefeated, multiple time All-American. He's won everywhere. He's gotten better on top. Van Ness is at home. He was cooking with gas all year, except for the match with Ridge Lovett. Penn State generally bounces back really well, blah, blah, blah. I mean, your guys' logic might be stronger than my logic, but it's not a whole lot stronger.
No.
So this is interesting. I mean, the duel, whoever, I'm either going to collect wings from both of you or win wings from both of you, because that's the only difference in the picks. So anyway, a lot of fun. That duel is always fun to pick. We will talk next
Friday
week.
night, correct? Friday night duel.
Friday night. Okay, yes. So speaking of which, two last things. Number one, if you have not and you have Amazon Prime, go watch Unstoppable, the Anthony Robles story. I don't know if either one of you guys have seen it. It's really well done. Really well done. Robles does a lot of his own wrestling scenes with Johnny DeJulius as Matt McDonough. I will warn you, if you're a person that loves things to be 100% accurately portrayed historically, they don't do that. Like Robles' junior year, he didn't lose to McDonough in the national finals. He took 7th or something like that. But it's a great story. They talk about him doing the hill on his crutches and everything else. Don Cheadle's really good as Sean Charles. J-Lo's really good as Judy Robles. It's an awesome movie, okay? And the other thing is, I want to give a quick shout out to the Kyle Thrasher Memorial Tournament that's going on in St. Charles this weekend. I will be there. Jonathan Dixon at MissouriWrestling.com. It's putting it on his platform. Jeremy Rooks is streaming it. Kevin Stroh's the tournament director and has invited us out to elevate what's already a great tournament, probably one of the 2 or 3 best tournaments in Missouri. There's like 50 teams in it, so it's really good. So excited about that. But the reason why I bring that up is I will be there Friday night, but there's no commentary for me to do Friday night. So Kevin and Rooks have already set it up where we will have our own monitor plugged into a laptop to watch Penn State, Iowa. So we're excited about that too. So, all right. Anything else before we go, boys?
No, I'm good.
All right. For Mark and Grant, I'm David. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for watching and listening. We will see you all next week.